Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Big Apple Hockey, where the offseason has started. And man, Anthony, it is already ratcheting up to crazy levels of just craziness already over just the last couple days. I, of course, am your host, Marc Williams. There is my nameplate that I like that one better. But yeah, silly season really did begin. And I have the first of the two co-hosts, John Falkowski, will be joining us in just a moment, but Mr. Anthony LaRocco.
Yes, how's it going? A lot of stuff going on. The season may have ended, but the silly season has begun, and we're going to bring all the action to you.
Anthony, it's one of the rare times where we got an A block that is chock full of a lot of things, but one of those things we have to do is cover the Stanley Cup Finals. And let's get right to that and getting to the A block where Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals was Monday. Everybody also, of course, get your Big Apple Hockey trucker hats and shirts. They're available now in the link below. The A block is brought to you by Seat Geek. Use the promo code Big Apple Hockey. But Anthony, Game 7, and Florida wins the Stanley Cup 2-1. Edmonton becomes the first team since 1945 to push for a Game 7 since an 0-3 deficit. And Connor McDavid becomes the first center to ever win the Conn Smythe. We'll get to where you think this is in all-time Game 7s, or at least in our lifetime. But what's your thoughts on this series now that you can look at it from a further glance?
My thoughts on the series are, quite simple. It looked like it was going to be a laugher. It looked like it was going to be over in 4 games. And the Edmonton Oilers gave the hockey world more hockey and made it a really exciting series and brought it to 7 games. I thought, unfortunately for the Oilers, it was a little case of too little, too late. While the Panthers certainly looked, they were just holding on for dear life at the end there. You could tell, in the third period of that game, the Oilers were running out of gas as well. And that's what happens when you fall down 3-0. It's taxing on you. You need every ounce of energy, every shift when you're in that hole. Like I said, the Oilers just kind of ran out of time. And kudos for the Panthers for bending but not breaking. And there was one sequence there in Game 7 where I certainly thought the puck was going to go in the net. It was kind of where McDavid got the puck in front of the net. He stopped and was about to kind of dance around Bobrovsky, and then the puck just didn't go, and there was a mess of bodies on the ice there. So they came close, but unfortunately for the Oilers, weren't able to get the equalizer. But congratulations to the Panthers on winning their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. It was well earned. They went through the gauntlet to get there. They beat some really good teams. And aside from really kind of like a 3-game slip up, they were by far, I thought, the better team in the majority of those games. So pure elation on one side, and then you saw the agony on the other side with the Oilers. It's always a tale of two different, sides when the cup is awarded. You feel for the losing team, and you feel a lot of, joy for the winning team, because, all those guys worked their whole life to get there, and they finally realized the dream. So I thought it was a good series. I thought it was entertaining. And the thing for me that kind of you kind of exemplify everything is that Connor McDavid, he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, and that was well deserved. But in games 6 and 7, McDavid was totally shut down. And that, unfortunately, he needed to be better in that situation. In the Game 6 and Game 7, he wasn't able to break through.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Anthony, that this was a series that like I said all along, Florida in 6. And then as Ella's making a little cameo right now. But I've said before that this was a series that I saw Florida winning it in 6, but Edmonton was going to make it tough. That being said, Edmonton really, really made it tough. And McDavid came alive and showed what true stars do, especially when their backs are against the wall. New York Ranger fans have seen it with Henrik Lundqvist, and Chris Kreider, who have had great records against elimination in the past. But this was McDavid literally willing the Panthers to play 7 games against the Oilers. And I mean, I think in the end, because it got to 7 games, he deserved the Conn Smythe. We're going to talk more about the Conn Smythe acceptance in the Bar Talk segment, by the way. But this was just a masterclass by McDavid. And when you see about the injuries that they had, there was another shot that we had on the Big Apple Hockey Twitter. You can check it out. That it looked like Bobrovsky made a save on that sequence Anthony was talking about. That it went down low. McDavid tried to dance around, and then it looked like it was either I think it was Draisaitl that tried to jam it home, and Bobrovsky was able to just hit it with his blocker. It's one of those things that it's kind of hard to just put it all together. I don't know 100% if that was a stop. It looks like it was from our angle, but it's and by the way, guys, thanks for everybody getting into the chat on this one. This really was a series that kind of is for the ages. It's game 1, 2-0 loss. Okay, that was the game 2, really solid game. That was a great game by both teams. Game 3, a little bit back and forth until the Panthers made it 4-1. Then it was 4-3 at the end. But then game 4, if you take away game 4, this series is amazing. As I try to kill some time until Anthony gets back and Phil gets on. But good. I do have a Mr. John Falkowski coming on to join us right now. Because I want to get Phil's thoughts on this series. It is an important series again that I and also I'm gonna ask in a minute, Phil, on your where does it rank all time in game sevens? But first, what are your thoughts on the series?
Interesting. I mean, I guess it started off kind of boring. We all thought it was just going to be another, Florida runs over everybody series, and it looked like it was just going to be a boring series. But Edmonton made it interesting. Turns out Connor McDavid was dealing with an ankle injury that's going to require surgery. Leon Draisaitl was dealing with a broken rib and a broken finger that he sustained in the Vancouver series. If anything, it wasn't a bad series. I think I enjoyed this series more than I enjoyed Las Vegas and Florida last year. And what's going on? Yeah, so I definitely think that. I mean, 16.3 million viewers in games.
Yeah,
I mean that's big numbers for the NHL. The NHL gets its other Florida team its first Stanley Cup, 30-year anniversary of the team, and they win their first Stanley Cup. I think if anything, it's good for the game. It was good for the game to see Connor McDavid on a national stage rip off 2 8-point games. So now I think people understand how great he actually is. And the fact that he won the Conn Smythe, like I said he would, at the 40-point mark, to win the Conn Smythe and do it on a losing team just shows you how great he actually was. So if the NHL had its way, if I'm somebody from the NHL, this was probably the best possible result. You got to see how great McDavid was, how great Draisaitl was. The team in the non-traditional hockey market won, and a team from Canadian market got there. So it's exposure all over. The ratings were apparently pretty good, and the series got interesting as it went on. So I don't know if I can rank this up there with like the greatest all-time series. Probably not.
How about just the game 7s that you could think of? Where does it rank with game 7s? Just go with your lifetime.
In game 7 Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, you'd have to look at the Rangers in 94 is probably the best one I've seen. Obviously, there's a bias involved, but I mean,
But then probably right after that, would you say Ray Bourque getting his?
that would be my number 2. It would be Colorado and New Jersey. I know Jersey fans are not going to like that, but I don't think that there's a lot of games that stack up to those two afterwards. I would say probably my number 3 would probably be Tampa Bay and Calgary.
Okay.
I know that Hobby Bolin blanked them in that game, but
there was a goal at the end in the last.
Oh no,
game.
that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, it was 1 goal, but that was probably my number 3 in terms of game 7s. And then people talk about the Blues and the Bruins. Vancouver and Boston in 2011 was kind of a dud because Luongo really didn't have his best game. But I would say this is towards the middle bottom for me.
Really? Okay, because I would actually put it maybe around number 3 for me. Anthony, your lifetime game 7s, what do you think? This is just Stanley Cup Finals.
I mean, it's really hard to quantify. I mean, yeah, I the first one that comes to mind for me is Ray Bourque, Colorado in 2001. I mean, Boston and Vancouver was okay. You know, the Rangers, Canucks. That, I mean, I wish I could remember it more. I mean, obviously, as an Islander fan and being on the younger side, I was like 9. I obviously remember watching it, but I would be lying to you if I could sit there and tell you, you know, I watched the whole thing and I knew all the ins and outs of it because I don't. But as far as this game, the Panthers and the Oilers, I mean, it was a 2-1 game. I thought it was okay. I mean, it wasn't the best. I would kind of say middle of the road. But I mean, I will say, like, the last couple of minutes of the game when, like, McDavid was pretty much out there the whole time and the Oilers were pressing, those had some pretty, you know, fun sequences, especially the one I mentioned before, right when we went on the air, about how, you know, looked like McDavid was going to walk around Bobrovsky there for a tap-in, and then there's a whole mess of bodies there trying to prevent the puck from going in. So it had its moments, but
you guys
overall,
saw
I would say it was kind of average.
You saw the tweet that I sent that it looked like maybe Bobrovsky knocked it down with the blocker.
Apparently, afterwards, he did actually get a piece of that, according to some of the replays and what I see. I saw something. It looked like an angle where he did actually get a very small piece of it. But, I mean, I would agree with Anthony. For me, like, the game itself wasn't great. It was really moments throughout the game where you were like, oh, wow, like this could have went in, this could have went in. But I thought the game itself overall was okay. It wasn't great. For me, I think if I looked at this game, I would say, you know what, it really comes down to certain moments at certain times and missed scoring chances where you were like, oh, wow, that could have went in. If this went to overtime, it's a different story than at that point.
I've had a lot of conversations Monday night. What do you think about the Reinhart goal that was right after Kulikov took it out of the crease, got it out of there in harm's way? Reinhart, it looked like a lazy shot on that just got through Skinner. What do you think about that one?
Soft goal. You can't let that up. He was not screened. It squeaked through him. Yeah, I mean, Reinhart's got a good shot, but I guarantee you, if you ask Sam Reinhart, that probably wasn't his best shot. And it did not look like a great shot. I really would have to say that was a softie. Skinner was good for them. Wasn't great, but he was good. And that's all you can really ask from a goaltender of that caliber, is for them to be good. But he did let up a softie in that point. It's on others, though, to step up. It's not just on him, that loss. The biggest thing for me is how poorly Chris Knobloch managed that game at the end. Like, you have all that sustained offensive pressure, and you're not pulling the goalie. I mean, if you would have had the 6th guy out, you could have kept McDavid and Draisaitl a little fresher, at that point, and they could have gotten more scoring chances and maybe even tied the game. So I think Chris Knobloch should take a bigger brunt of the heat than the players on the team.
But on the other side of the coin, Anthony, Paul Maurice gets his first Stanley Cup after just almost 3 decades of being a coach.
Yeah, I think everyone in the media shares the same sentiment. That everyone was kind of, you don't root for anybody per se, but everyone was happy to see him get a Stanley Cup. He's a great guy. He always answers all his post game pressers. He's honest. He's interesting, and he's just a classy guy. I mean, after they won the cup, he was interviewed and he said, now that we have one, he's like, my wish is that the people in Winnipeg, they get to experience and, win a Stanley Cup. I mean, that's just class. So, so happy for Paul Maurice, well deserved. And, now he has the task of trying to repeat next year. But yeah, no, awesome guy and so happy for him.
And how tough will it be for them to repeat next year? We're going to talk about that in the Bar Talk in a little bit. But guys, let's switch gears because we got a lot of stuff we got to cover right now. We're going to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They announced the class of 2024. Pavel Datsyuk, Shea Weber, Jeremy Roenick finally in, but there's more on somebody that isn't. Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell Pohl, and then in the builders category, Colin Campbell goes in, and so does David Poyle, who was a longtime GM in the NHL, more than deserving for him. Phil, I'll start with you. Thoughts on the inductees and the snubs?
I think anybody knows me knows how much I love Pavel Datsyuk and
Just a little bit.
Just tremendous of a player he was. It's still to this day, I say he's the smartest and maybe one of the most skilled players I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if we'll ever see another player that could do the things that he did, that had the presence of mind to do the little things that he did on the ice. But I'm so happy for him, off the wall happy for him. Very happy for Jeremy Roenick, who absolutely deserves it. He was one of the best players of the 90s into the early 2000s. He was just someone who you thought would have gotten in earlier. Obviously, there may have been some other issues that contributed to that I'm not really going to get into. You know what? I'm going to talk about that one right now. I was a little surprised by it at first, but when you look at it, Shea Weber was one of the top, I would say, 3 to 5 defensemen of his generation. And if you're going to go strictly on awards and individual achievements and so on, then there's only a couple of people that should get in every 10 years then or so. You're really kind of taking away from a lot of people if you're going to really heighten the bar to that level. But Shea Weber's international resume is really, really good. I mean, he's got gold medals, I believe, for the World Championships, the World Juniors, 2 Olympic gold medals. He was on, I think, 2 different Olympic All-Star teams for defense in 2010 and 2014. If I'm correct, I know he was
I think you're correct. Yeah,
he was for the Olympic All-Star. But I mean, he won the hardest shot competition 4 times. Was one of the scariest defensemen in the NHL to play against for, I would say, about 15 years. People looked at him and they were just scared of him. So, yeah, and you know what? I mean, maybe if you didn't want to get him in on first ballot, okay, but look at this point. Weber would have won a lot more Norris trophies had he not played in an era where Nicholas Lidstrom, who happens to be a top 5 defenseman of all time, played. Like it's unfair. Like how many scoring trophies would someone like Steve Yzerman had not Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky played during his time?
Even at Norris trophies, how many more would Brian Leach have had if not for playing at the same time as Chris Chelios and Ray Bourque and Paul Goffey?
Yeah, exactly. So, Leach would have had like probably 2 or 3 more himself. So, but I'm not going to hold that against Weber because Weber went from having to deal with Lidstrom and then Chara won one, and then you had Drew Doughty, Duncan Keith. Like, I mean, Weber played alongside some contemporaries that are going into the Hall of Fame, no doubt. But the biggest snub, once again, it's Alexander McGillney. Did he hold like some NHL executive's family hostage or something? Like, did he commit some sort of crime that nobody knows about? Because why is he being snubbed from the Hall of Fame when lesser players are getting in?
And especially, it's like I want to make a joke about his defection to be like that's what he's going through all over again. But
he was a pioneer.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Anthony, go on with McGillney. What do you think?
I mean, I kind of left speechless. I mean, I don't know how many times now he's going to keep getting snubbed. I mean, the guy, he has the hardware, he has the cup. He has the points. He was prolific in a lot of different categories: skating, shot, stick handling. I mean, he should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, there's nothing else to say, but he should be in the Hall of Fame, and it's certainly a head scratcher that he's not in. I mean, it took Jeremy Rona a couple tries, so I mean, maybe McGillney eventually gets in, but I don't know. I'm left dumbfounded about it.
And then in the builders category, you had Colin Campbell that went in. He's been the deputy commissioner, well, not really the deputy commissioner. What's his official title right now? Because he used to he's been working with the NHL for the last 20 years. After I think he took the job after Bryant Burke left when he was doing the Czar discipline. But David Poyle, he only was a GM for two teams, and it's over a span of almost 50 years. So it's amazing what he was able to do. Just 50 years in hockey for him. But again, we're going to go back to this one. We always say it, guys. Stan Fischler. How does he not in yet?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, all three of us wanting to be in hockey media. I mean, and all three of us being in this area and having watched Stan Fischler on our TVs for the last 25 to 30 years. He's been with like MSG Networks. So I don't know how he's not in. I really would love to know how he's not in and hasn't gotten like a Foster Hewitt Award yet. It's crazy to think about.
Anthony, any other snubs you can think of right now?
Sean Van Allen.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good one.
Anaheim Mighty Duck and Senator Sean Van Allen.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I mean, not off the top of my head, honestly.
Well, since you mentioned Sean Van Allen, let's get a quick little comment about those new Ducks jerseys.
Yeah. I like that they went back to the old logo. I think that's what a lot of people are clamoring for. I think everyone wants to see the old colors too, but I guess beggars can't be choosers. So they kind of gave a refresh on that classic logo. I have no issues with them, other than in a perfect world they would have been the old colors. But again, it was it is, and certainly better than what they've been using. I mean, that duck foot and that whole previous design was just no good. So
Yeah,
because Phil, you wanted the eggplant back, right?
Yeah, and that's what I said. Like, I love what they did with the logo. So far, Fanatics, I got to give them thumbs up for those two, because I think what they did with the Kings was really good. But I do like the actual jersey itself, the design, but I just, the color scheme, I can't get over this orange. Like I like the one positive I'll say about that is that they went with a new color scheme, and the NHL needs new color schemes. There's been way too many color schemes that are close to each other. The Rangers, the Capitals, the Canadiens, they're all close to each other. That's why Washington needs to go back to the 90s scheme, what they have with the Screaming Eagle, and get away from that color scheme. And I know they came up with that color scheme in the 70s, and they were there until 95, and then everything changed in 95. But it's got to go back. Like, we got to start getting away from same old color scheme for teams. Have some differentiation. That's why Arizona going back to the Kachinas was one of the best things that could have happened, because it was a different color scheme. And then, for the love of God, can we please go back to whites at home and colors on the road? I don't want to see a team's white when they come in. I want to see the team's colors. It's better that way.
I've gotten used to seeing the team's colors at home, so it's hard for me to say that. But Anthony, let's answer that comment from Wicked. Would you put Keith Tkachuk in the hole?
So he's missing the cup, so that's obviously a big strike against him. But he's one of the better American-born players of our era. You could consider all time too. He's certainly up there. Power forward, kind of played the game in a heavy way in a time where players like that, like Lindros and stuff, he fit that mold. He was tough, but you could also make the case against him. So I don't know. He's like one of those fringe players to me. But because then if you talk about Keith Tkachuk, then you start to open the door. Okay, well, if he gets in, then what about other American players that kind of played in his era that aren't in as well? That
like John LeClair,
similar track record. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. He's one of those borderline players. What I'm interested to see what happens is when Corey Perry, when he hangs them up, does Corey Perry get in the Hall of Fame? Ryan Getzlaf, guys like that. I
say yes to both of those, by the way.
Are a similar category. I mean, they have cups, but I don't know. I go either way with Tkachuk.
Well, what helps a lot of these guys is that it's the Hockey Hall of Fame. Phil, what do you think? Would the Team USA's accomplishments help Tkachuk get in?
He's about as close of an argument to being on the line. He literally straddles the fence for me. I can see why people. Yeah, I don't think they were saying Getzlaf was American, John.
No.
I wasn't saying he was. I wasn't saying he was American. I was just talking about guys on the bubble.
On the bubble, yeah. Getzlaf for me is right on the bubble as well. Tkachuk is very close. The one thing I will say is that Tkachuk has led the NHL in goal scoring once, 97.
Mm-hmm.
He's a multiple time 50 goal scorer. He is one of the better American-born forwards of that era. I mean, it's really, I think of the same thing though for Roenick as I do Tkachuk. I think of Tkachuk as one of the. I don't think Patrick Marleau should be in. I don't.
He's more of a really good.
He's more of a really good. None of his seasons to me speak great. He was a compiler and he was a very good player for a very long time. If Patrick Marleau gets in, I honestly think Joe Pavelski was a better player over a longer period of time than Patrick Marleau was. And Joe Pavelski did a lot on his own. But Tkachuk, for me, I can make a strong case for him to get in, especially based on Roenick. The numbers are close. Roenick obviously had more points. He also played more games. But Tkachuk, when you looked at forwards in the NHL back in the day, especially at the wing, Keith Tkachuk was probably top 3 to 5 winger back in the day. In his peak years, he was one of the very best.
Yeah. And look, I would actually put Tkachuk in, especially with the Team USA accomplishments, the 96 World Cup of hockey and the silver medal in 2002. I have always talked about how
this is why I think he could end up getting in, is because of the international stuff. But for me, I just don't think he was that great of a player.
And Leo, just to go with that, 1,800 games for Marleau, most of them post salary cap era or in the salary cap era. When you look at Keith Tkachuk, most of his career was before the salary cap era, and he has 1,201 games played and 1,065 in points. So It's just that was the oddest way to say 1,065 points, but I had to have at least some kind of minor screw up in there, guys.
Yeah, no, we got what you were saying, but yeah, I do agree. Kachuk was a better player, and I don't think that you will find anybody in the know in the NHL or any executive or any general manager or coach that will tell you that at their peaks that Patrick Marleau was a better player than Keith Kachuk. It's just not the case.
Yeah, no. Is it just Keith Kachuk was one of the best power forwards of the game, and there was another American that was right there with him. I loved John LeClair. I thought Keith Kachuk was the better player, though.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought he was more skilled. I thought he was more dynamic, and I liked LeClair even though he was a flyer. But Kachuk was a better player and could make his own offense. And LeClair, I'm not going to take anything away from John LeClair.
No one is.
How much different would John LeClair's numbers look without Eric Lindros?
He was the perfect compliment to him. That's what he was. Although, and again, he was great with that with the Team USA teams too. All right, guys, we're gonna get a quick message from DraftKings, and then we are going to be going to the NHL draft tomorrow night. 2 of us are going to be going and covering it all weekend. We'll be talking all about the NHL draft right after this. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. All right, guys, we're not going to do a full mock draft or anything, but we are going to give some outlines for the draft. This is usually my favorite weekend of the year whenever we do this show, guys, because Phil breaks down every single prospect, including ones that I've never heard of. And Anthony's on the phones talking and getting the behind the scenes stuff. And usually I'm wasted. So awesome. Going in with this one, guys, Anthony, let me start with you first because we haven't gotten you to talk in a while. Who is the most intriguing team at this draft?
Intriguing team?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say because, I don't know. I would say maybe Chicago, like Anaheim. Like, do they pick a forward? Do they pick a defenseman? I mean, if you're talking intriguing, also in the aspect of like, will they make some trades? Will they look to move? I mean, then that kind of expands things. But I am curious to see which direction Chicago goes. If they try to select a forward to kind of pair up Bedard, or they go with one of the talented defensemen that are available.
Phil, which team are you looking at?
Honestly, I don't have a team. I don't, because this draft is so wide open. If you look at the mocks, you could probably look at 10 different mocks and get 10 different picks for players outside of maybe I would say the top 3 to 5. And even within the top 3 to 5, after 1, there's some dissension between pundits. I think this is an intriguing pick because San Jose is going to have their second pick at 14. Do they trade down? Do they try to get some more picks and prospects involved? The Rangers could be intriguing because they could trade up. Word is that they may be packaging Capo Caco with their 30th pick to move up. It just, there's a lot of different pieces going in a lot of different directions. I mean, I've seen the Rangers mocked with probably about like 6 different picks, at least, that I can think of off the top of my head. I've seen other teams with just a staggering amount of combinations of players just going in different directions. I've seen guys like Stian Solberg. Like, I've seen him mocked as high as 13 and as low as 31. And he probably projects to be something comparable maybe to a Radko Gudas. Plays that type of game. I don't think there's going to be much of an offensive upside there. But, I mean, I've seen players like Teddy Stiga all over the place. Tarek Parasak all over the place. Cole Eiserman has been a real interesting one because before the start of the season, he was touted as the best pure goal scorer in this draft and was supposed to be a top 5 pick. Scouts are supposedly souring on him, according to Bob McKenzie.
I think because of his defensive play.
Not just his defensive play, because people are thinking that he may be a one-dimensional type player. Like, you know how Alexander Ovechkin went from the most dynamic and exciting player that we've seen in God knows how long to a guy that just feeds off of one-timers in that left-hand circle? Like, it's – I mean, there's been discussions about Ivan Demidov. Like, I've seen some mocks have him as low as 5, when a lot of scouts say that he is probably, in terms of talent and upside, the second in the draft behind Celebrini. I mean, one thing's really for certain. Celebrini's going number 1. And then there's probably, usually in previous years, I could say from 4 to like 12, there's like a jumble of players in that range. And then from 12 to 21, or 13 to 21, there's another jumble of players that could all go in that range. And then from 22 to 32, there would be so on and so on all over the place. But there are even some players that are coming in from late second round that people think that could be first round draft picks. Like, for one example, for the Rangers, a lot of people are talking about Dean Letourneau, who's a 6'7" center that has a ton of talent. The issue that I have with him is that he's played at a lower level. He's played high school prep hockey. But you should know this of all people. The last time the Rangers took a gamble on a prep school player, he turned out to be a long-time player that now wears a letter for them.
Oh, Kreider?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andover Prep.
Yeah, I got Brian Leach in my head. Then you said now where's the letter?
And
Leach at Boston College after the prep.
Yeah, school, so. Leach went to Boston College, and he played for Avon Old Farms, and then went to Boston College, and then came into the NHL.
Well, Phil, I got to hold you up just for 1 second, only because you're going to lead into what the next question is, because you already took one of the guys I was going to talk about for the potential Rangers pick. I just want to say really quick, Anthony already took Chicago, because do they go with Demidov and then you have the 1-2 punch that you're open to look for with Bedard? Or, you know what? San Jose obviously, but I'll say New Jersey. New Jersey got their goaltender without giving up that 10th pick. Are they going to package that pick and try to move and get something else? Because they want to be back to competing in the playoffs.
Yeah.
We'll see whether or not they'll do that. So, Phil, I did say it just now. Let me get right back to you, because you took it was Dean Letourneau, right? Yeah, Dean Letourneau. Yeah, that was one of the guys I was going to mention, but you already got there. So who should the Rangers be targeting at number 30? Actually, wait, before we do that, let's wait for Anthony to get back. Yeah, we'll do Rangers first. We'll get Anthony
to get back there.
All right, now he's back.
Yeah, I would say, all right, so other players that I've seen mocked to the Rangers, a pair of defensemen, Charlie Illich and EJ Emery. And EJ Emery, sometimes, like, many think that he kind of profiles like Keandre Miller a little bit. I think Emery is a little more polished defensively. I think Illich might be the better all-around defenseman. The only thing is that with these two, I wonder how high the offensive upside is. Emery didn't put up a goal for the U.S. national development team. He had 16 assists. Emery is a great skater. Excellent skater. Profiles more like a cross between like a Brady Shea and a Keandre Miller, something like that. Emery, people think is closer to maybe Braden Schneider, and the comparisons are also there because he plays for the same team, the Brandon Wheat Kings. So scouts think that the Rangers could go back to the well and draft another Western Canadian boy. Another guy that I would, and I just want to make sure that I have the name and the pronunciation on this correct, because Kleber.
Okay.
Another one that I think. But the problem with him is that the skating is not as great as some of the others. He's tall and lanky at 6'5", but the skating may be a concern with him. Wings, Julius Bietinen. He's another one that I think that could end up being picked there. Big, powerful skater, power forward, works hard down low. But there's a few others I could go over, but I'll leave the floor to you guys.
Yeah, I'll give my Rangers guy, and then I'm going to go right down to Anthony because I also have an Islanders guy right there. The one guy for the Rangers I was looking at was Cole Baudouin.
Baudouin, yeah.
Baudouin, yeah. It kind of falls. The Rangers have this philosophy of big centers. They're going to go with that. Anthony, who do you see the Islanders targeting?
In a lot of mocks I've seen Jet Lushanko go to the Islanders. Trevor Connolly. Those are the guys I think realistically are going to be in their range. I'm especially intrigued by Jet Lushanko because he's apparently, from what I understand, he's a very good skater. He's explosive, and he can score goals. So for me, I think that's the guy I would lean towards. I don't think he's going to drop to the Islanders at 20. I'm not saying this, but I am curious in general about Cole Yzerman because he's from about a year ago. He's dropped significantly. Now he's like mocked to go like in the teens, like 14, 15. And his deal is kind of similar to Cole Caulfield, a really good goal scorer, but for every reason, he's kind of dropped a little bit. And I think whoever gets him might have a gem on their hands, especially if you get him around 14, 15, 16. So that's a guy I'm really interested in seeing where he goes.
Phil, I'm just going to spit out my Islander guy real quick so I can get back to you and your thoughts on that. Because obviously, as Anthony mentioned, Trevor Connolly, but there was also Liam Greentree that I was looking at.
Liam Greentree could be a real good player. I mean, if the Islanders took that, I think Islander fans would be very, very happy with Liam Greentree.
After all, Phil, the line that says on one of the mocks that I had, and I took this from them, 18-year-old left-handed shot, can protect the puck, goes hard to the net, is very nimble, creative player for his size. That sounds like a New York Islander to me. There's only one bad piece of information I have to give. He's a Windsor Spitfire, and he'd be the second best player to ever wear a Windsor Spitfire jersey on the UBS ice. And of course, Anthony didn't hear the comment.
Yeah. So, I mean, the NHL mock draft from Kimmelman and Mike Morreale, Kimmelman had Jet Lachenko, and then Morreale had Liam Greentree. And Greentree's got some size and some goal scoring capability. And I do like both of those picks for them. Connolly would be a good one. I wonder if they would take a defenseman, though. I really do. I wonder if, and I wonder, to me, I think the biggest fall potential in the draft is probably Yzerman. Like, would I be totally shocked if he fell to like 20s?
Wow.
No, I wouldn't.
Wow.
I really wouldn't. I think he will get picked beforehand, but if he falls into like the 20s or something like that, I would not be shocked. I also wouldn't be shocked if the Rangers made a trade up. If they made a trade up to take somebody, I think that that would not shock me at all. Another thing is this guy right here, Andrew Bacha. That's somebody that I've seen mocked to the Rangers. Dynamic player, great offensive instincts, high IQ, creativity off the charts. Could be a steal for a team in the second half of that first round.
Well, Phil, you know what? I guess that answers who's potentially the best bargain for you, but we're going to come back to that one in a second. Anthony, who are you hearing is the most NHL ready player?
I got one.
Well, at the combine, Demidov weighed in at over, I think he was like 6'4", close to 200 pounds. For a kid, he already almost has like a man's body. He's just going to fill out more as he gets older. Obviously, there's the whole Russia thing, but I was listening to NHL radio today, and now that Michkov is leaving,
I don't think you mean Demidov. Demidov's a smaller one. I think you're talking about either Saleyev.
Maybe. I thought it was Demidov, but
no, Demidov
check
is
that
smaller.
Out. What I was saying was NHL radio saying today, now that with Michkov leaving and coming to North America earlier, it might change teams' thinking on drafting Russian players and not being so afraid to. So which if the case, I mean, a guy like Demidov may have more value, but every case is different. SKA for whatever reason just decided to let Michkov out, but I think that helps the Russians going forward.
Phil, who do you think is the most NHL ready guy?
It's a lot of people to me are talking about Anton Saleyev. I mean, he's 6'7" and he's over 200 pounds already. That's what I think Anthony was talking about. I think maybe there's just a little bit of confusion there between those two. But Saleyev is a 6'7" defenseman, over 200 pounds already, probably about 210 pounds. He has some incredible skating ability for his size. Now, I mean, people are going to take a look at him and think that he's going to be like Chris Pronger. I don't think he has that mean streak in him. He doesn't really play that way. Can that change with time? Can you beat that into somebody? Maybe. But to me, I think of Victor Hedman light. I think somebody who has incredible skating, incredible size, incredible puck moving skills, very good shot. I think I just saw that.
Man.
Sad, man. That is sad.
I remember him very well.
Same with Toronto, on a line with Matson and Steve Thomas.
Yeah.
But he was Saleyev is a very good puck mover. I think he could come up there. I wonder if Artem Lashunov would be up sooner than later. I think there's going to be legitimate discussions about Macklin Celebrini staying behind and staying in college. Because I don't know if they really want to throw him into the fire yet in San Jose, and everybody's always going to look at the number one overall pick and say, oh, well, he's ready. He's ready. He was great at BU this year. He was incredible. Won the Hobie Baker, true freshman winning it. And I don't know if he's going to stay back or not. I mean, it might actually benefit him to stay back a year, let that San Jose team in front of him get a little better, so the offense is not resting on his shoulders, and kind of just go about his business as developing into the player that he should be.
I would also give Will Smith more playing time if that's the case, right?
I mean, he's going to come up. That's another thing. I mean, Will Smith and Celebrini would be basically shouldering a lot of the offense there with who else? Michael Granlund? I think Granlund might even be a UFA, but there's not a lot there in San Jose.
And the guy that I saw, we talked about him with you guys in the group chat, Consta Helenis. His coaches have been raving about him, and I would be interested to see if he's going to be playing in the league sooner than later. Phil, I'll go right back to you quickly. Who is the biggest potential for a reach?
That's a tough one.
You can always have Anthony go first if that's the case.
No, I mean, I wonder if people take a look at Terry Parasak's numbers and go higher for him. I just wonder how well his offense will translate at the next level. There's a couple other guys you could probably take a look at. Carter Yakimchuk, 30-goal defenseman, WHL. I wonder how he translates at the next level as well. I wonder if he gets picked a little higher. The guy that I think that might get picked a little higher than some would think, and I would really I really like his game a lot, and I think he's going to be a pure offensive dynamo from the back end, is probably Zane Parekh. A lot of mocks have him in the second half of the top 10, but he had 99 points as a defenseman in the OHL this year. Like, he is just incredible talent offensively. I could see him being picked in the top 5. I don't know if it'll happen, but that wouldn't shock me if a team took a chance on him going top 5. Other reaches, I wonder how much people value someone like Stian Solberg and his physical play. To me, I would have him in the later half of the first round, the end of the first round. This is an interesting tidbit here. New article from Johnson has Kakko and Trouba on his trade board. There's definitely word. Fast risers. Letourneau is a fast riser. Sam Dickinson is a very fast riser this year. Dickinson at the start of the year wasn't really on a ton of radars, but with Oliver Bonk going to the World Juniors, Dickinson took over the power play time in London, and his offensive numbers shot up because of it. But the question for me is, does Dickinson's offense translate at the next level? Because he could end up being sort of like a slightly lesser talented offensively Noah Hannafin, if you ask me. Like, he plays, he's got size at 6'3". He's not going to be a massive defenseman, I don't think, once he fills out. I think he'll be at over 200 pounds, but he's a great skater, knows how to get body positioning on forwards. He's not overly physical, but doesn't shy away from it either. Zeev Boyum is somebody that I'm very high on too. I've seen comparisons in the names of Devon Taves. People have said Devon Taves as a comparable for him. I can see that. Very good two-way defenseman. Solid at both ends. Good skater. Moves the puck very well. Solid decision-making with the puck. Great ice reads. I do like Boyum, and he's another one that projects around 5. I wonder if someone would go with Parekh over him, though, with the upside on the offense.
Anthony, do you have a biggest reach?
I don't, to be honest with you.
All right, yeah, we got to get through one more so that way we can get to the news. Mine potentially, I feel, just correct me if I'm wrong on this one. Maybe that might be Caden Lindstrom, because I back injuries scare me.
I don't know if that's necessarily a reach.
So in some mocks, he's as high as like 5.
Yeah, 5 or 4.
I mean, I've seen him anywhere from 3 to 4. If somebody took him at 2, I wouldn't be shocked, but most mocks have him like 3 to 5, maybe even 6. I doubt Montreal passes up on him if he's available by the time Montreal picks. Because Montreal, over their last few years or so, has been trying to get away from that smaller build of a team and adding size and skill. They added Kirby Dach. Then they drafted Juraj Slafkovsky. Then I do think that they could end up taking Lindstrom. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rangers like to reach, but I don't think they're going to reach. I think they, if anything, maybe they trade up, but I doubt that. I doubt that they'll be making a massive reach here.
All right. Let's just go right to what that Nature's news was that Anthony put up there before. That Pierre LeBrun believes that the Buffalo Sabres are now the front runners for him. And Chris G said, wondering if Tuck becomes available. Anthony, Tuck is going to be staying there. We know that. But could you see him going? And maybe that's the reason why they're talking about buying out Jeff Skinner?
Yeah, it's possible. Look, just when you talk about the Sabres, the main thing is that this team, along with the New York Football Jets, have the longest playoff drought in professional sports. The Sabres, they need playoff hockey. They need playoff hockey for their fans. It's way overdue. I mean, Marc, I feel like ever since we started doing this show, Big Apple Hockey, even when it was all things Rangers, every year when we talk about previews, standing wise, it's always, the Sabres, the Red Wings, and the Senators. Those 3 teams are going to take the next step. They're going to finally get into the playoffs. And every year with the Sabres, it doesn't happen. And every year, it seems, most times, it's fool's gold. They'll start off hot. They'll be at the top of the division, and then they plummet. So the Sabres, the time for excuses is over. They've already gone through rebuilds. They need to get into the playoffs, and I think there is a lot of pressure on them to acquire NHL-ready players that are going to help them get over that hump. Now, is Marty Necas that? The thing with Marty Necas is, why he wants out of Carolina, according to his dad, is that, he wants more opportunity. He wants to play on the top line. He wants power play. Top power play minutes. And the thing with Necas is, when you watch him skate, Marty Necas is a dynamic skater. He's got wheels. He's got straight ahead speed. He can cut and start. He has a lot of skill in his toolbox. The thing with him is, can he be more consistent and play the same way, night in and night out? And if the Sabres can get Marty Necas, yes, he's an upgrade. He makes them a better team. Now, at what cost? If it's the Sabres have been accumulating picks and prospects for a while. So truth is, they could afford to trade away their 11th overall pick and maybe a couple prospects for Marty Necas. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, this is the deal that the Sabres probably should make. He is one of the better players available on the trade market. So for them, I would make this move. They need to make the playoffs. They certainly need to make the playoffs. And this I disagree with. Marty Necas is a more talented player than Nemestikov. It's not particularly close. Yeah, I know Nemestikov had a good year in Tampa, but look who he was playing with way back when. Marty Necas is much more
40-point season.
Yeah.
Necas has a 70-point season under his belt.
Yeah, he has reached the 70-point mark. So, yeah, back to Buffalo. If they can make this deal and helps them get into the playoffs, they have to do it. That's just my opinion.
And Phil, what do you think? Necas to Sabres, does that make sense to you?
I think they need defense more than anything. I think they need another defender to go along with Power and Dahlin. But, I mean, they do need another forward. I'm guessing that the Skinner buyout, if anything, it hasn't happened yet, though.
It hasn't happened yet, no.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Buyout window starts tomorrow.
Starts tomorrow, yeah. But I really think that... I mean, it could be because of that. They could be looking to add him and then look to lock him up to another contract, I guess. But I have trepidations about him being the guy that really kind of puts him over the hump. And maybe if they do make other moves, maybe this is just, maybe that would be step one. But if they went out and they got Natchez and then they got a legitimate defenseman to come in to help them out, I mean, that could be a big time move in the right direction for them.
Well, one thing is for certain, because you look at that team from 2018, 7 guys have gone on to win a Stanley Cup elsewhere. That's the Sabres, in a way, built the team. If you look at that roster in 2018, geez, that the Sabres had a great roster, and then they just couldn't put it together. And now they basically rebuilt their team again. You got Tage Thompson, had a bad first half, I think, and then they started looking more like Tage Thompson at the end. Maybe you get a guy like Marty Natchez and unlock him, and you got to start building. You can't always be rebuilding. It just doesn't work. All right, guys, that's it on our draft right now on the draft preview. Let's get into the NHL Bar Talk.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. And of course, welcome back to the NHL Bar Talk, where we're gauging our confidence in NHL topics based on our choice of drink. You're so confident that you're buying around, so I'll have a beer, or give me a shot. Put your comments down in the comments below. Good thing I said comments twice. That's great radio. All right. We'll start with some other news that was coming up yesterday. Patrick Kane has interest in coming back to New York Rangers, according to a lot of reports. Philk, the Rangers should sign up for a Kane reunion.
I want to say shot, but I have a feeling that this is going to be an option that's going to be near the top of their list of options for right wing. The reason for that is that I think that Kane has unfinished business in New York, as the report is going around. But I also think that the Rangers, they might not be able to create the cap space needed to get someone like a Jonathan Marchessault or a Jake Gensel, and they may have to fall back on Patrick Kane. And if Kane is willing to take a 1-year deal with an incentive-laden 35 and over contract, then that allows them to do a lot of other things and address a lot of other areas. It allows them to bring back Ryan Lindgren, even at his qualifying offer of $3.6 million for a year. It allows them to sign Braden Schneider at like $2.5 million. And then it allows them to go out and add other bottom 6 pieces that they desperately need to improve on. So I would say as a backup plan, yes. As option number 1, no. So I'm going to say beer.
Anthony?
I'm going to say beer too. He shouldn't be plan A. But if they can't move, let's say, the salary needed to go out and get a Marchessault or Jake Gensel, I think, getting Patrick Kane would be a fine consolation prize. I don't think he's necessarily the player that they should target first or that they really need. But again, if that's what they can end up working with, then yeah, you take it, because Kane did look like, the Kane of old at times last season. Looked like his hip was actually healthy. So if it happens that way, maybe, he has, like I said, he's fired up to his unfinished business with the Rangers, and he can get them across the finish line.
I'm kind of with Johnny Red on this one.
I'm sorry, I thought that was a funny comment.
Yeah,
I'm actually sort of with Johnny Red on this one. Look, I actually think Patrick Kane, I agree with what you're saying, Phil. Maybe budgetary wise, that might be a pretty good option. I'm going to go shot on this. anything, the New York Rangers learned from the Florida Panthers series, they got to get younger, they got to get bigger. And Patrick Kane is the opposite of both of those. Now, he looked better this season with that hip, but I mean, if they get him, that's one story. Maybe it's a smart move, maybe it fans out. But also the question is, what's his role going to be? If you're then going to take him and feature him, then
he's going on right wing one. I'm telling you right now, if they do that, he's going on right wing one. And after Zibanejad comments about needing a playmaker there, yeah. And not only that, but one thing that Patrick Kane does, two things that he adds are speed, and because he looked a lot faster last year, and 5v5 offense. He actually outproduced Mika Zibanejad at 5-on-5 despite playing about only 50 games. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's bad for Zibanejad. That's good for Kane.
And you know who else that's bad for? That's bad for Chris Kreider in the end.
Yeah.
Going over to the Islanders, they have the 20th pick in the draft. They got Noah Dobson as a free agent. You got Brock Nelson. Well, Noah Dobson is an RFA, just to clarify for anybody on radio or the pod on audio. Anyway, Brock Nelson, 1 year remaining. So, Mr. Larocco, Lou will make a splash at the NHL draft. And yes, I use splash.
Did you have to say it like Christopher Walken?
Yes. I kind of did. I needed to get a little bit more judge in there, as my fiance would say, judge.
Yeah, he did. So, like, and you included Dobson in there. However, like, Noah Dobson's not actually eligible to sign his extension until July 1st. So, I would have said, I think I would have said round just because of that. I think Dobson's going to sign an extension, but like I said, that can't happen at the draft. Same thing with Nelson. So that eliminates the re-signings. So now you're talking about specifically now a trade. So that makes my answer not a round, and it moves it down to a beer. I do think that he's not dead set on using the 20th pick. I think if there's a player out there that he likes, he might use on for a player that helped now. So I'll go beer, but I'm 50-50 on whether or not he's going to make a trade like he did Romanov a couple of years ago. But we'll see.
Phil?
So wait, so by splash, because you mentioned Dobson, so we're not talking about him signing any of his own guys like Dobson. Right?
Well, I use Dobson as like a re-signing thing, but obviously can't do that till the first. Maybe we get the word that he's got that in the draw.
We're talking about like an external move then.
Yeah, like an external move.
Or a trade up.
Or a trade up, yeah.
I'm going to say shot. The reason for that being is that they don't have a great cupboard right now of prospects, really. The only thing I could see is Lou made a UFA signing in 5 years. What?
Or drafted a legitimate player in the last 6. Well, he drafted Noah Dobson.
I mean, yeah. I was just typing that. 2018. Yeah, me and Anthony were literally there for that. I wanted the Rangers to take Dobson. He was in my top 3 of guys that I wanted. Yeah, I'm going to say shot just because outside of trading up, I don't think they have a lot to work with. Like if you're talking about them making a trade and trading their first round pick for an NHL talent, an already like established talent, I don't see that. I don't know what else they would do other than really kind of like trading up. So if we're going to qualify splash as in like a trade up, then that's the only thing I could really see them doing. And I don't know if Lou really wants to spend the assets to go and do that right now. I mean, and by splash, like we're not talking about like trading up like 1 or 2 picks, right? We're talking about like a significant trade up to get at least like 5+ spots up.
I guess I would have to say that because he did already trade down 2 picks, right, Anthony?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Okay. So, Yeah, which was weird. It was kind of weird to see it trade down before the draft even happened. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that.
I guess JG Pajot would fall into this category too, guys. So
you know what? That's actually a good one. You just convinced me to go from shot to beer.
Okay.
I'm going to go beer. I could see JG Pajot getting traded. That would be a splash. But in terms of like trading up or trading away established talent, I'm probably going to say no on that part. But I'll definitely say beer because I do think that there is a Pajot deal that Lou is probably trying to work out as we speak.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to keep it as a beer as well. I was actually ready to go shot with you. Then I mentioned Pajot.
Yeah,
that's sort of the outlier.
You got me there.
Yeah, it's I have the feeling Brock Nelson's going to be a lifelong New York Islander, so I don't think he's going to get traded, even though that's their biggest trade chip if they wanted to deal him. But but looking at it, I could almost see him trading down again in this draft, or trading that 20th pick and doing like a Romanov deal. And I remember when that happened, we were all shocked about it, and Romanov's been a good pickup for them. So we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah, that was definitely a very scrutinized deal for giving up a first-round pick for it. So.
At least as a young player, and he's under team control. That's what Lou likes. Lou likes control. Guys, as we mentioned before, the Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup in 7 games over the Edmonton Oilers. The Florida Panthers will make it back to the finals before the Edmonton Oilers. Guys, I am actually going to say I'm going to go beer on this one. I was ready to say Florida and buy around. I don't know if Florida's going to make it back. I think Edmonton might be on their last run with this core. I don't know if Edmonton makes it back next year with this core. I'm going to be honest with it. And if you let it go one more year, what's Draisaitl going to command? I have no idea what's going to be happening. Edmonton, and I keep saying this. I've said it for the last 2 years. They need to explore trading him. I don't know about that one because you can't have McDavid and Draisaitl take up $30 million on the cap. Phil, what do you think?
Man, that's tough. I could see Connor McDavid having another postseason where he scores 40 points. He's Connor McDavid. The guy can literally turn on a switch and do what he wants. It's just that good. Problem is they have a lot of UFAs right now that they're going to hit the market in a few days. Connor Brown, what a great run for them. Warren Fogle, who's been really good for them, and he's going to be in high. Actually, him and Connor Brown are going to be both in high demand. Adam Henrique is going to be a UFA. Matthias Janmark, who was very good for them in that final series, is going to hit UFA status as well. They're going to have a lot of guys. Florida, they're going to have less UFAs, but it's more key guys, more higher end guys that you're going to have to worry about. Can they bring back Sam Reinhart? And when he's going to look for an upwards of $10 million on his next deal after shooting 24% almost. Are teams going to give him that? And if teams are not going to give him that, they're going to look at that shooting percentage and say, hey, you know what? That's not sustainable. We're not going to give you $10 million. Maybe Florida can bring him back and can entice him to take an even lesser deal because no state tax and other stuff like that. Got to consider the economics.
No state income tax is big.
So, yeah. So it's a big thing for them. But Brandon Montour, he did not have a great year this year. It was kind of hurt a little bit. He might be gone. And then where do you go from there defensively? So, I think Florida has a better chance of it, but I don't know if either of those teams make it back this year. It depends on the moves, really. It's still early, but I'll say beer in this regard right now.
Anthony, who makes it back first, or beer?
I'm gonna say the Panthers make it back before them. And with that said, I'm not even totally it's going to be hard for the Panthers because, as Phil kind of outlined some of their issues with their UFAs, you have Reinhart, you have Montour, and even secondary pieces that are free agents. Stenlin, Tarasenko, Cousins, Oposo, Lomberg. Those are a lot of players from your team that just went to the Stanley Cup Finals that are unrestricted free agents. Kulikov. So the Panthers are going to look a lot different next year. So it's going to be hard for them, just as it's going to be hard for the Oilers. But if I had to pick, I would say the Panthers get back before them.
And it's a tight thing. That's why I think I went with beer first. But yeah. And speaking of that,
also, you got to remember in the Panthers case, it's hard to get to the finals 3 years in a row. I mean, we all know the Lightning did it; they lost the third time to Colorado. It's really hard to get to a championship 3 years in a row. It's very difficult. So if the Panthers don't do it next year, don't sit there and act surprised, because it's very difficult.
The other also, thing, Anthony, it's rarer when it's you lose the first one, go back and win the second one.
Yeah. The other thing with that is that Florida has about $19 million in cap space. They only have 3 NHL caliber defensemen under contract right now. And that, Montour's not under contract. And in terms of forwards, they only have 7 forwards under contract. And one of those forwards is Jonah Gadjevich. And he's not really anything. It's not really anything great. I mean, they only have Barkov, Kachuk, Bennett, Verhaeghe, Rodriguez, and Luostarinen, who are their regulars under contract. And that's $34 million in cap tied up between those 6 players and Gadjevich.
Well, guys.
Oh, and I totally forgot Lundell. He's not a UFA, but he's an RFA.
He's an RFA. He's going to command a raise, a significant one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big piece, especially him. He was great for them in the playoffs. Guys, but also speaking about how historic that run was for the Oilers, Connor McDavid, 40 points in the playoffs, 42. He becomes the first center to win the Conn Smythe in a losing effort. But when he was awarded the trophy, he did not come out. Connor McDavid was right not to come out to accept the Art Ross. Wow. The Conn Smythe. Oh, man. Well, we waited all day, guys. We got one.
Oh, God.
Jesus, Marc.
Hey, look, he's won the Art Ross a bunch of times. He won the Conn Smythe on this one.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just repeat it again for editing purposes. Try not to laugh too hard, guys. Connor McDavid was right not to come out to accept the Conn Smythe, Mr. LaRocco.
I mean, I've seen some people kind of kill him on social media for this, but he's the captain of the team. Obviously, his teammates are broken that they didn't win. As the captain, the right place for him is in that room with the guys, kind of going through all the emotions and everything together. To kind of leave the room in that moment where I'm sure it was probably really quiet, and like I said, the emotions were real in the toilet, to just leave in that moment to go get a trophy that's an individual achievement and then come back in with it is, I don't know. I think as a leader and a captain, he did the right thing by not coming out to get it. I have no issues with it, at all. So, this is a round.
Phil?
Also around same reasons. I think as a captain, if you go out there and we don't know what's being said at that point. We don't know if it's complete silence or if it's him talking to the players, coach talking to the players, whatever the case may be. I don't think he should have came out. Didn't need to. There's no need for it. If it was a player that won the cup, they'd obviously be out there already, and that wouldn't be a problem. But it's time to be with your teammates and console them and offer what words you can offer. And I know McDavid is not looked at as the most vocal leader, but people behind the scenes say he's a lot more vocal than you think. And I'd imagine that if there wasn't silence, McDavid was the one speaking in that locker room.
Yeah, I got to agree with you guys on this one. So let's make it a hat trick, and then I'm going to say it's a round. Look, initially speaking, I was kind of like, hey, why didn't you go out and get the award? But it is an individual award. They just lost the Stanley Cup in Game 7. The last time that happened was 2003 with J.S. Jaguar. He had an unbelievable playoff run and certainly deserved that. And so did McDavid in the end. However, I do have to say this. One thing would have changed that perspective slightly if it happened in Game 6. Then he's in Edmonton. Then it's in front of his own fans. Even though, again, it's still a little bit more heartbreaking. Well, misspellings and dog barkings. That's the way that always works.
Well, I'm still looking at distillery over here. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Actually, you know what? That's a new one. So don't you just know it? I got a new one for you. But I mean, if it was at Edmonton, it would be giving some love back to the fans.
Yeah,
I can't kill him on this one, Phil. I can't kill him on this one. He's on the road, and also he even said it felt like even Jaguar said it. I just took it and put it on the trainer table. I didn't even bring it in, but this was a rare situation. But I'm gonna go right back at you guys again. Phil, I'll start with you, then over to Anthony. Obviously, should a losing player be able to win the Conn Smythe?
Absolutely. No question about it. The players who have won it on losing teams have all deserved it. Look at Roger Crozier's numbers. Look at Ron Hextall's numbers. Look at J.S. Jaguar's. McDavid was the first skater, non-goaltender.
Second. Reggie Leach.
Oh, Reggie Leach. That's right. 76. Yeah. That's right. So
he had 19. He had 19 goals, and Yari Curry tied it.
Yeah, but you're looking at a player that just made history. He broke a record that nobody thought would ever be touched. There was a case in 2002 for Peter Forsberg, who led the NHL in scoring in the postseason, despite getting knocked out in the Western Conference Finals by Detroit in Game 7. That's how good Peter Forsberg was that postseason. And it's not just the numbers. If you watch Forsberg, he dominated all around, offensively and defensively. So if Peter Forsberg would have went to the finals and Carolina somehow would have found a way to beat Colorado, I probably would have given it to Forsberg that year. So, yeah, there are players who put up these incredible performances and the rest of the team just cannot deliver the way they could, and their team ends up losing. So, yeah, it is deserved.
Yeah, I have to say you should be able to do it. And look, if the player can't come out and accept it, that's fine. Take a picture with him later. It's one of the worst moments of his life. His dreams have just been crushed. So there's no need to just stick him out there. Like you saw the emotion in Jaguar's face when he won it. Again, like I said, Edmonton would have changed things around for him to go accept it. But for the people that are absolutely killing him, this is one where, no, this isn't talking to the press where that is his job. This is one where he can go, no, guys, it's that award means nothing to me. And I'll tell you what, Phil, that might win some praise in the locker room and maybe motivate them next year. I won the individual award. It didn't matter to me. Let me see if we can go out and get the cup next year. Phil, we're going to just run right along and we'll talk about another mind-boggling thing that happened on Monday night. The Senators acquired Linus Ullmark from the Bruins in exchange for Boston's original first-round pick. That was 25th overall.
Marc Corpusalo.
Yeah, and Jonas Corpusalo. And how do I pronounce that? Kastelik?
Kastelik, yeah, Marc Kastelik.
Marc Kastelik. And also, by the way, Ottawa's retaining 25% of Corpusalo's remaining contract. Great signing, Pierre Dorian. But the deal was announced 30 minutes before puck drop of the biggest Game 7 in arguably NHL history. First things first, Phil, there needs to be a trade for the Stanley Cup Finals of trade freeze. You can't announce these things. Okay.
I'm gonna go shot. I don't really care, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me. I don't know why it's bothering you the same way. I guess you have your reasons, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, I thought it was pretty interesting to see a deal announced right before Game 7. So,
I'll tell you what, I'm going to put on my commissioner hat for a minute. And like I said to you before, I would just call up the GMs and say you're both fired. I don't have that power, but now I'll just suddenly have it. I want all the attention on Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't need a trade happening in the middle of all that. You can't wait one day and announce it. You can't announce it the day before. I mean, at least the day of games. No, you can't. You can agree in principle. Which, by the way, then it's going to get leaked. Elliot Freeman will put it up, or maybe even who knows, one of us.
So why does it matter then if you know it's going to get leaked?
That's where it's a noble thing. But I just think the NHL shouldn't announce it, because if that's the case, you know, it just takes away attention from, you know, it's like if somebody got engaged at my wedding. I'd be like, dude, you're at my wedding.
That's a little different.
All right. But also, Phil, let's go right to the second half of that. The Senators have found their franchise goalie in Marc.
I gotta say shot. I'm not that I don't think that he can be that, but he's unproven outside of Boston, and he's going to be playing on a lesser team with a lesser defense in front of him, and that defense might not even have Jacob Chikrin after this weekend, for all we know. So I can't say that they found their franchise goaltender, because that would mean that I'm so confident that he's going to be the man there and he's going to succeed there. Listen, 2 years ago, not really repeatable type season from him. I don't see it. He came out of nowhere and had that type of season. I have trouble seeing him replicate anywhere close to those numbers in Ottawa with their current situation as constructed. If they make some moves to improve, maybe he proves to be a solid number one there, but the words have found their franchise goalie. I got to say shot on that right now.
Anthony, before you answer this one, what do you think about the trade being announced a half an hour before the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7?
I mean, bad timing, and I'm sure Bettman wasn't happy. But as I told you earlier, I mean, what does he want teams to do? This season has gone way too late. That was June 24th. The draft is June 28th. At that point, free agency was 7 days away. You know, it's everything's all too close together, and general managers aren't going to wait around. They need to take care of their business. So, yeah, I have no issues with it.
All right. But how about the Senators? Is Marc their franchise goalie?
I'm gonna say beer on this. I mean, first he's not even signing an extension. He's gonna wait to see how it goes. So you can't call him a franchise goalie when he could walk out the door next year. And then as far as Marc himself, listen, in Buffalo he was okay on a bad team. Then he went to a really good team in Boston and was elite. But I think that was a large portion of that was because he played on a really good team. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him. It's just a fact. So I'm curious to see how he plays on an inferior team in Ottawa. If next season he comes in and he posts similar numbers to what he has the last 2 years. Well, maybe not 2 years was Hasek level, but if he replicates what he did last year, then I would say, okay, he's a legitimate starting goaltender. But I want to see how he performs on the Senators first before I say he's a franchise goaltender.
I'm going to go shot on this one as well, guys. We'll make it a hat trick and again for us, because something.
No, not a hat trick. I said beer.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's not as much of a mess up, but still, look, they had the choice on who to sign or who to keep. You went with Jeremy Swayman, who was the better goalie. Allmark still hasn't won a playoff series, guys. That's one thing just to mention with that. And yeah, he's not signing an extension, so you can't say that he's going to be there for the long term. And you know how much I think goalie trades do not happen during the season. They're going the way of the dodo bird. So it's just not something I really see feasible. They better try to lock him up sooner than later. And speaking about teams that are at the bottom that are making changes, Todd McClellan and Jay Woodcroft gaining traction to go to the Columbus Blue Jackets, either or, obviously. Anthony, McClellan is the ideal coach for the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, as I told you, I think he's a good coach. I mean, yeah, he hasn't got over the hump, but he's been around. He has a pretty good track record, and in his stops, whether it be San Jose, L.A., Edmonton, I don't think any of those teams not winning is on him per se. I think a lot of those teams that he coached had issues that the general manager didn't address, and he worked with the best that he had. Especially like Edmonton. He had some of the best players in the world, and Edmonton at the time was same old story. They didn't have goaltending, their defense was bad, they didn't have enough depth, and that's not his fault that he couldn't get that team to win the cup. So I think he's a good coach. I think for a guy like him taking over a young team, I think he can mold them, kind of, explain to them this is the way that you have to play if you want to be successful in the NHL and get them to buy in. So, I think he's respected, and I think he'll do a good job there. So, yeah, what more else could you ask for? So, round, I guess.
Yeah, Phil?
I'm going to have to buy around here. I would say this, and I'm going to preface this by saying that, when you're going from a guy that inexplicably benches a young 40-point player on opening night in Pascal Vincent, who almost immediately loses the room right after that, to a guy that's very well respected across the league in Todd McClellan, yeah, I would say this is an ideal coach. He's going to come in, he's going to restore order, he's going to establish a culture there. He's going to hold players accountable, and he's proven that he can work with both young players and veterans alike. So, that's a pretty solid hire for Columbus if they do decide to bring him in. I like that for them. The work that he's done with teams like San Jose and LA, like you said, it's not really his fault that they couldn't get the job done. I think there were definitely some issues that management didn't take care of that could have gotten them past the other teams in the finals back then, not in the finals, in the playoffs back then. But if anything, McClellan would be a breath of fresh air, especially if you tried to bring in Mike Babcock and that didn't work. And it came out afterwards that he was an even bigger piece of shit than people knew about. So I don't know if you guys have heard the interviews from other players afterwards, but the stuff that he was doing to guys like Marner and other players that he was, younger guys that were trying to make the club, it was insane. And I don't want to get too much into Babcock and all that other stuff and open up that whole ordeal again, because we have gone over that. But McClellan is somebody that's recognized across the league as a good coach and a good guy. And all the exit interviews with him were positive from what I know. So I'd imagine that bringing him in to take over this young core, and who knows, maybe they keep on the Patrick Laine, and McClellan can get on Patrick Laine and turn him around for all we know. I don't know if that's going to happen or not in terms of them keeping Laine, but he'd be somebody up near the top of my list of guys that could come in and say, hey, you know what? You need to whip your ass in shape, and you need to stop doing this, and you need to start doing more of this, and this. So
I'm going to make this one a hat trick again, guys. Well, this one actually a hat trick because I said to Anthony last week, they need to get a veteran coach that's going to come in there and install a culture. I referred, Anthony and I were discussing this earlier. I referred to him, Phil, as sort of hockey's Buck Showalter. He's going to get them to play the right way, do the right things, and he's always going to get everything turned around on the organization. I like McClellan as a hire right here. Hopefully, that's who Columbus goes with, because you know what, the people of Columbus, they really deserve a better product than what they've been getting the last few years, ever since John Tortorella departed the organization, and as well as obviously Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky. By the way, guys, last one for the mock drafts that are going around right now. The big name that seems to be on everybody's lips, TJ Ginla going to the Calgary Flames in a lot of these. His father, Jerome Ginla, in case if you don't know, Calgary's all-time leading scorer, almost 1,100 points. Calgary drafting TJ Ginla would be the story of the draft. Mr. LaRocco started off.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure his dad would love it, right? Ending up the team that he was most known for, had a illustrious career for. You know, but there's a lot more family lineages in this draft. I don't know if you saw the post by the NHL, but Ilya Bryzgalov's son is in the draft. Derek Plant's son. Then there's what's Koivu, Saku Koivu, and Mikko Koivu.
Yeah,
uncle and father. Yeah, he's in the draft. So there's a lot of kind of family lineage in this draft, but yeah, sure. Yeah, I think mostly be cool for Jerome Ginla. I don't know how much of the other hockey world would really be like, oh, cool, but yeah, sure, Mark, sure.
Phil, what do you think?
I'm gonna say beer. I wouldn't necessarily say round. It would be a feel-good moment, just because seeing son drafted to the team that he made his name on. He was drafted by Dallas, obviously traded for Joe Nieuwendyk.
Mm-hmm.
But it would really be interesting seeing that. And I believe, if I'm correct, Calgary or Dallas picked again, I think at 11, and I think Calgary is pick 11 in this draft.
They're 9.
Oh, they're 9. Okay, so he would actually be drafted 2 spots ahead. But yeah, it would be cool. I wouldn't say it'd be the story of the draft. The story of the draft would be if some massive trade was made. Obviously, that would be the big story. We always hope for those, but I think Tej is going to be arguably the best goal scorer to come out of this draft. I wonder how the rest of his offensive game pans out, though, because he's not really a great playmaker. He's underrated in that regard, but he's not a top-level guy that creates a ton of offense. I'm not saying he's going to be a guy at the NHL level that ends up having the bid for the NHL's Cy Young Award, the most goals and the least amount of assists. Like someone like Chris Kreider could end up having like a 50 goal season with only 20 assists. But I do think that Iginla could end up being a top 6 winger who actually ends up being a real good complement and ends up being like a 30-plus goal guy that is primarily a goal scorer. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up something sort of like Jake DeBrusk, maybe a more physical version of someone like that.
Who was also the son of a NHL
Louis DeBrusk, yeah. Who was traded from Messier.
Guys, I got to go with a round on this one, because if the chips fall down where they may, they're going to have to bring Jerome McGinley up there to probably like announce that his son is getting drafted by the team that he won the MVP with Calgary, correct, Phil?
Again, no, he didn't win the MVP. He won the Richard and the Art Ross in 2002. Theodore won the MVP in the Vezina that year.
Oh, yeah, and deserving of that one that year. But this one, I would have to say, it would be the ultimate feel good story, and you just gotta wonder if the Seattle Kraken at 8 might ruin it with him left on the board, and they just go, "All right, we're taking TJ Ginla." So, or even stranger, or what if Calgary passed? That would be completely odd. So, all right.
I don't think Calgary should have any pressure to take him, though. If they find a player if they've come across a player that they think is great at that pick, they should have no worries about where that kid goes. They're not drafting to have a feel-good moment. You're drafting to get the best possible player with the highest upside that will help you towards a Stanley Cup one day.
And that is a good point. Doesn't their current GM, wasn't he a former line mate of Jerome McGinley's?
Craig Conroy, yes.
So I think that would actually add a little bit of pressure on there. No,
Craig Conroy was the center in 2002 when he had that big year.
But obviously, guys, you make the pick for the sake of your franchise. That matters more than the feel-good moment. But these two things can also be true at the same time, obviously. All right, that's the end of Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, guys, where we gauge our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. There's one topic we did not cover at all today, and we're going to get to the news and notes of Anthony in 1 second because he's probably got plenty. But, Phil, Glen Sather stepping down with the New York Rangers. What's your thoughts on that?
I put up a thread on Twitter because it took me about 4 different tweets to kind of summarize everything the way I thought about it. I know a lot of you have been around since the dark days. I know a lot of you remember those vividly. Having players like Jeff Toms and Tomas Klocek and Dave Karpa and Sylvain Lefebvre and Stefan Quintal and Eric Lacroix and all these various names come through. Mike Knubel finding his NHL career elsewhere. Marc Savard being dealt away and finding his NHL career elsewhere. The Rangers were a laughingstock during that time. Absolute laughingstock. And I'll never forget Bobby Holik basically coming out and airing out everything about what was wrong with that team. And basically saying that people were coming for a check and nothing more. And that, they signed him to be, they gave him first line center money. He's not a first line center. He's more a second, third line center. But that's really the big thing for me there is that team that Glen Sather inherited from the mess that came from the end of Neil Smith's tenure. And not all Neil Smith's fault. I think that there were definitely some things going on above him that he probably wasn't happy with that also led to the end of his tenure there. But Glen Sather made some moves and finally got James Dolan to take his hands off the team. And with that, was able to turn this team around and bring them back to respectability. Like, their salary cap era is a really good, it's probably one of the greatest times of prosperity in team history. They've missed the playoffs only 3 times since, if you're going to count the play-in round against Carolina in the bubble, because technically that is part of the playoffs. And they've made 5 conference finals and a Stanley Cup final. And it's incredible to see how a team went from a laughingstock. And I can remember being on hockeytraderumors.com back then during those days. And just this team was constantly trolled by Islander fans and Devil fans. And they were the laughingstock of the back pages in the entire metro area. And then things turned around. And Sather made a big trade for Yager, giving up Anson Carter and getting Washington to eat half of that contract for the life of it. That was just amazing. And then he went and the salary cap came in and he basically went and appeased Jaromir Jagr and brought in a bunch of pieces that were thought of as kind of appeasement deals to Jagr. Marty Straka, Michael Nylander, Michael Roosevelt, Marc Malik, and so on. And he drafted some young hotshot goalie in 2000 with a 7th-round pick that ended up becoming one of the best players in franchise history. And that 2005-2006 team wasn't expected to win, and that was one of the most fun seasons I've ever had watching hockey. And it felt good to go from 8 years of missing the playoffs to that, and then the run that they've had since about like 2012 has just been real fun to watch. Yes, he's also made some big mistakes. Jesse, Sanguinetti, McElrath, Ryan Gropp over like Rupe Hintz and others in that second round in 2015. You can, but Glen Sather's not perfect.
We'll get to one other comment that Mikey D's got right there, but also, Phil, don't forget, in 2014, he actually had 2 men from the 2000 draft that he drafted, but one of them did leave the organization and come back because, of course, Henrik Lundqvist. And the first-round pick that year was Dominic Moore. And he's the one that put him in the Stanley Cup Finals.
I don't think Dominic Moore wasn't a first-round pick.
Was the first-round pick? I thought he was the first.
No, they didn't have a first-round pick that year because that was
he was the first pick by the Rangers.
Yeah, he was the first pick they had, but that was the fallout from the Tampa trades with Savard and going back and forth with Tampa and stuff.
Hearing any news regarding Trouba or Kakko?
I'll get to that in a second, but just to finish up my point, Glen Sather, not perfect, but he helped bring this team back around. So I see the comments. Oh, well, if he never drafted Lundqvist, he would have never had anything. Okay, so if you're going to blame him, if you're going to take away from him for that, then you also got to give for the picks that he did make. Stepan, Dubinsky, Callahan, Anisimov. You could go on, and the moves that he made. The McDonough trade. He turned Scott Gomez into Ryan McDonough. Come on.
Arguably the best thing that happened to him was the salary cap.
Yeah, and it was. It definitely was. But I know that people are going to turn around and say, oh, well, Sather's been running this team from the shadows for the last 7 or 8 years, maybe 9 years. Okay? No way of quantifying that. No way of proving that. But, again, I got to say that Glen Sather does deserve some praise as much as he deserves some criticism and some heat for the moves that he made. And you know what? You can have your broken clock sayings about Sather, but he did a lot more than you're giving credit for. And listen, I'm not sitting here, I'm not trying to simp for him or anything like that, but I understand that while he wasn't the best and he wasn't perfect, he did a lot to turn around the mess that he inherited from the guy before him.
And I know we get some other comments like this one, Johnny Red saying 20 years of them or 30 years of them. Got 1 Cup final, 2 Eastern Conference Finals. Although, by the way, it was 3 Eastern Conference Finals because of 2012, 2014, and 2015. And some of his residuals are still left from the last 2 conference finals. But he had the Rangers kind of ready for the lockout era. But, he's going to get more criticism than praise. But you know what? It's kind of how it works, especially when you're with an organization long enough. There's a lot of people that might not say the same thing about Ken Holland right now in Detroit.
And that's another one. Great first part of his tenure, and you could say that he inherited a great team from Jimmy Devellano. You could say that, and that you would be perfectly justified in saying that because Devellano put all those core pieces together. Yzerman, Fedorov, he got the Russians over. He drafted a lot of other players that came up, and he made those moves. He was the general manager up until the mid-'90s. But Holland made some good moves in the early 2000s, or in the late 90s, early 2000s, to keep that team right up near the top for a while and into the mid-2000s and late 2000s. But you know what? Sometimes people overstay their welcomes. Mm-hmm. And I look back at the quote from The Dark Knight and from Harvey Dent. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Yep.
And Glen Sather, just like Ken Holland, they became the villains because some mistakes that they made over time, and people like David Wood here, like many other fans, will give them more criticism than praise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they deserve an equal amount of it.
Where do you see?
That's your opinion, you know.
By the way, answering this one, where do you see Kiwi Haru getting drafted? Pronounce that right?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know. I've seen some mocks middle first round. I've seen him second round in others.
Mikey D and B-Rye are talking about Kako getting moved at the draft. I kind of see that as a foregone conclusion, to be honest with you.
I could see it there. I could definitely see it there. Though I think they're looking to move his salary. I think that they have other moves that they want lined up. Yeah, and then you have Saravalli talking about adding Trouba to his trade board. I could definitely see Trouba being moved, I know that some fans don't think it's going to happen because of salary, but I'll tell you right now, defensemen like him, there's always a market for. There's always a market for him. No matter how much people talk about how defensemen, don't get, it's not the typical NHL defenseman these days. You got to be great puck movers, physical, stay-at-home defenseman. There's always a market for him. Some team's always going to take one on. I would like McGroarty. I think Kako gets moved for either to move up or another piece. But if the Rangers ended up getting McGroarty, I'd be more than okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar on him. I'm going to make sure I'm still doing my crash course on all the.
Was a very good player at the World Juniors for Team USA this past year. His line was very, very good. So I like McGroarty a lot.
Yeah, I look forward to potentially getting back NHL Network one of these days. But with the Trouba thing, again, you cannot risk him going from 15 teams to 12 in that no trade clause next year, no matter what. And as our Anthony LaRocco is saying, watch out for Yzerman and the Wings if Stamkos goes on the market. How much more do you think Stamkos has left in the tank? Because when you sit back and go, he's been playing in the league.
He's got, I would say, 3 years. I maybe even a fourth, depending on where he goes and who he plays with. But I think he's got like 3 good years.
Mikey O is saying, any minor leaguers cracking the Rangers lineup?
I would say Edstrom could maybe get a full-time spot at fourth line center if they can't find somebody reasonable in the UFA market. Look out for Brett Berard. Okay. I know that everybody's talking about Othman and how Brendan Othman's one of their top prospects and so on, and yeah, but from what I've heard, and this is from people who watch Hartford a lot more than I do, is that Othman's game translates a little more to 5-on-5 play right now than Othman's. So, I mean, if this was a year where they were looking to go a little younger, I would say maybe Othman would have a better chance. But I think with Berard's speed and his better play at 5-on-5, I think he may fit the Rangers a little better right now than Othman.
All right, guys, we're going to go till 7:45, so we only got a couple more minutes because this was a tremendous show today. This was a lot for all of us involved on this. There was so much news coming out. I mean, we got the draft stream that's probably coming up Friday night. You got Anthony at the draft. You have me at the draft. Look for all the coverage that we're gonna have, guys. So let's. I'm actually gonna start playing bye right now because I got dinner that's gonna be coming on soon. So I can't wait for that. But let's get a couple more in there. Berard's game translates 5-on-5 Oh, well, yeah. A rare mess up by Phil. He doesn't do that. Any minor leaguers coming for the Islanders? That's a great question. And actually, don't have Anthony in on that. Anthony, if you can, answer that one for us. Yeah, we're gonna try to have some fun, but you know what? It's gonna be work. Going there for a business trip. Going there, getting out as quick as possible. Looking forward to meeting up with some of the writers that are going to be there. I thought it's a 12-team no trade list. He gets to submit that it's only 12 teams. If I have that reversed, my bad. But when I did my research on it, it was the other way around. It's 15 this year. Next year, it's only 12. So, and I believe Vinny Trocheck's got the same thing. So, not that you need to worry about that with Vinny Trocheck for a couple more years, but still. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of draft coverage. Can't wait to see what the Spear is going to look like. Yeah, thanks, Matt. We work. You guys know we work hard on this to make sure that we got all this. We can't wait to get there. EJ Emery, you are a New York Ranger at number 24 overall. Wow, so you got the Rangers moved up 6 picks right there. I mean, trade predictions, you know what? We're going to find out more probably Thursday. No, Thursday's tomorrow. Probably Friday morning, I think we're going to find out some more. Dave, let me look that up because Cap Friendly is going to be going away soon. So I want to make sure I have that 100% right for you. Jacob Trouba, let me get back to that NMC. Modified no trade clause. Player submits a 15-team no trade list, and then the following year, 25-26, player submits a 12-team no trade list. So those are teams he's requesting not to go to. So you can guarantee all the Canadian teams are on there. So that would definitely be there for that. All right. Yeah, I don't think Matthew Robertson's got much of a career with the Rangers. So I think that's going to happen. And he was the guy that I thought that could have been a good pick. I think he was in the Dallas selection or the Dallas draft. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us this week on Big Apple Hockey. Great time as always. We have a lot of stuff coming at you. I mean, after all, we got draft coverage, trade coverage, Monday morning, the free agent frenzy. So, and of course, we're going to be with you all throughout the summer. Might take a week off. Might have to go and do some other things. But again, keep recommending us to everybody. We're looking to actually book some great guests for the summer too. So thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you probably Friday night.